Shabbat Shalom, Mishpacha v'Haverim.
Shabbat Shalom.
Moed Tefillah, what a strange word, huh? Moed Tefillah, the Hebrew words Moed Tefillah, means exactly appointed times of prayer. That's what it means. It's appointed times of prayers, the Moed Tefillah, are getting back to the Messianic Jewish believers, which are of both Jews and Gentiles, and being practiced more and more. It's evident throughout the world among the Messianic Jews. Now, before we actually going to get deep to this message, I'd like to give you a reference point, historical reference point, why this Moed Tefillah, appointed time of prayers, was rejected in the body of Messiah known as the Christianity. I think this will be very important. And remember, the next message I will come back to this, but not in such a detailed way, but just give you a reference point next week. So today I'm going to go a little bit deeper to it. Historic evidence. With the split of the Messianic Jews and the Messianic Gentiles that occurred in the 2nd century Common Era, and at the same time became a birth of a Christianity in the 2nd century Common Era, which rejected their roots and adopted a new approach to, according to a Greek mindset, or sometimes we can call this replacement theology. The Messianic Jewish faith and its halacha was rejected at the same time, slowly over a few decades. And was replaced with a new terminology. So instead of Yeshua, there's a Jesus. There was a new set of feasts. Instead of the Moadim, the appointed feast of our Elohim, which are in the scriptures, slowly they established new set of festivals, the Christian festivals, and the new systems of prayers. So this is also important. All of these things had to be changed because their roots were rejected. At the Catholic or Proto-Catholic, I could say, First Council of Nicaea in 325, Constantine the Great declared, and he said, "Let us then have nothing in common with a detestable Jewish crowd, for we have received from our Savior a different way." End of quote. This is the 3rd century. This is a picture of a Constantine the Great, as they call him. Anyway, he had put out a seal because of his power. He has a power of authority, right? He is an emperor. He is the first emperor who became Christian, who converted to Proto-Catholic version of Christianity. And he made a seal for the separation of the Proto-Catholics from anything that is Jewish. Anything. As you can see, this quote you can find, if you search for this quote, you'll find very easy. By this, he introduced to them a spirit of anti-Judaism. A spirit of anti-Judaism. So from that time, we saw that the spirit of anti-Semitism was empowered even more by the spirit of anti-Judaism. So from that time, the spirit of anti-Semitism became much more stronger because of that. But was it the same way among the Jewish believers? That's a good question. Believers, of course, who believed in Yeshua, about whom we read in the Maaseh Hashliim, in the book of Acts. In the book of Acts, Maaseh Hashliim, chapter 21, 20. So we're going back almost 3 centuries or 2.5 centuries back. In the book of Acts, we read chapter 21, 20, quote, they said to him, to Shaul, "You see, brother, how many thousands are among the Yehudim of those who have believed, and they are all zealous for the law." End of quote. So here, in a nutshell, we can say these are thousands of Jewish-only believers in Jerusalem alone, not even in the whole Judea or Galilee. These are thousands, literally, who believe in Yeshua, and this is the Kehillah for which Yeshua had laid his life. He said that he lays his life for this Kehillah, and the power of hell will not prevail. So at that time, there were no Gentiles in that Kehillah. And if there were any, maybe a God-fearers who used to attend the synagogue at the same time. Well, because we have to remember that all of the covenants that Yeshua have established are established with the nation Israel. They're not established with any other nation. So this is very important, because if we can only remember that, then everything else becomes much more clear. The pictures of whatever you look into it, it's going to be much more clear. So these people, about which we just read in a book of Acts 21, we can say these are the roots of our faith. This is the goal for the restoration in our Kehillah, to return to these roots, to the purity and holiness. Now, we know from the Christian church fathers, or the Proto-Catholic church fathers, that these people, over centuries, became unchanged. Now, remember what we read about the Council of Nicaea, okay? What Constantine proclaimed. Now, these people were unchanged. We have a record from the beginning of the 4th century Common Era, which we read from Epiphanes. Epiphanes was a Catholic bishop of Salamis, where in the book of Panarion, or we can say in English, Against the Heresies, okay, chapter 29, he writes and calls the Messianic Jewish believers who continue the same way as those in the 1st century that we read in the book of Acts. He calls them now heresies by saying, quote, "But these sectarians," now my quotes are small pieces taken out of the bigger context, okay? And I choose only some of them to show you today. Again, quote, "But these sectarians did not call themselves Christians, but Nazarenes. They have no different ideas, but confess everything exactly as the law proclaimed, and in the Jewish fashion." Who likes fashion? This is a Jewish fashion, okay? So is the Torah is being proclaimed in a Jewish fashion. Continue. "Except for the belief in Messiah, if you please. They are trained to nicety in Hebrew. They disagree with the Jews because they have come to the faith in Messiah. But since they are still fettered by the law, circumcision, the Sabbath, and the rest, they are not in accord with Christians. They are nothing but Jews." End of quote. So this is a 4th century Proto-Catholic or Catholic, maybe already at the time, or maybe you can say Catholic church father. Again, these information are easy to obtain if you search for them. Now, two things we have to remember from this: that in the 4th century, the Messianic Jewish people, believers in Yeshua, remained unchanged in their faith and in their halacha. Is it clear? They are nicely trained in Hebrew. That's why we put so much emphasis on Hebrew here. They keep the Torah and in a Jewish fashion. and much more of which I did not want to bring today because I don't want to go too deep to that. So by saying in Jewish fashion means in the Jewish halacha, how they do this observing of the Torah. They believe in Messiah, but they do everything like the Jews. So the Christians at that time have already rejected them. The Council of Nicaea, the stamp of approval, it says, done deal. We have nothing to do with these Jewish people and the Jewish things. Today, each one of us, we have the same choice. To return to our Jewish roots of our faith or remain on the Constantine side. Therefore, their prayers would also have to be in a Jewish fashion of this Messianic Jews. Would you agree with me? Since they did everything in a Jewish fashion. Since these appointed prayers are based on the Torah, about which I'm going to show you, we have to raise the question to ourselves and ask, shall we be doing them the same or not? In this week's parasha, in Devarim, chapter 10, verse 12, we read, Now, Israel, what does Yahweh your Elohim requires from you? But to fear Yahweh your Elohim, to walk in all his ways, and to love him, and serve Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and with all your soul. End of quote. How do you like this? This week parasha. Do you remember this from reading this week? Or from reading here at our show? So the question is raised here, what does Adonai, our Elohim, requires from Israel, from us? What? Well, I listed here, say, to fear him. Are you fearing him? Or you do what you please, believing in him? He says clearly, he requires from us to fear him. He requires us to walk in his ways. Do you see that? Good that we have a PowerPoint there. He requires us to love him. And love is not emotional, fuzzy feeling towards him. That's the human kind of love. He wants us to serve him. Now, all of these to be done with all our heart and our soul. Is there a better definition to explain these things? Now, to this is added in the next pasuk, 13, where we read, to keep the mitzvot of Yahweh and his statutes, which I commanded you this day for your good. End of quote. So now, we have more. Beside of requirement of walking in his ways, beside loving him, serving him, on top of this, to keep his commandments. So that means it seems like this is different aspects, right? So we can say that walking in his ways, loving him, serving him, it's extra to keeping his commandments. Would you agree with me? And his statutes, hukat, the commandments of the Torah that are not found rational explanation why to keep them. That's why they're called statutes. Now to a Jewish soul, a Jewish person, Jewish soul, all these words are very important aspects of their heart and of their faith in their halacha and in their daily walk, if they fear truly and want to be obedient to Adonai. But one of these requirements may be difficult to perform. Which one? Or difficult to establish how to do it. Which one you think will be so hard? Well, the sages look into it and say one of the hardest of these things to find out what he has in mind is how to serve him. Because these words are not to the Kohanim, but to Israel. If it will be just for Kohanim, then it's a matter for Kohanim. But he addressed Israel as a nation. How the nation shall serve him. So Maimonides, the Jewish interpreter, expounded on this word, serve, which in Hebrew is avodah. This is the Hebrew word avodah, as a duty of praying and praising our Elohim. Maimonides noticed this connection. To say this, he noticed there is a connection with the Pasuk 20, verse 20, where we read, "You shall fear Yahweh your Elohim, him shall you serve, and to him shall you cleave, and by his name shall you swear." End of quote. Here we see a connection of the avodah, a serving, with cleaving unto him. Do you see that? To cleave unto him. Cleaving unto Adonai can only be achieved by a prayer. So then serving him is praying. Prayer is cleaving to him. Are you with me? Now, in the Torah, we see instruction of a prayer that is appointed at certain time. At appointed time, or we can say Moed. The word Moed means appointed time. Moed Tefillah, the word Tefillah, it's a prayer. So Moed Tefillah, appointed time of prayer. And Bemidbar, in the Sefer Bemidbar, book of Numbers, chapter 28, we read about this Moed, this appointed time in Pasuk 1. Bemidbar, Numbers 28:1, we read, quote, Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, "Command to the children of Israel and tell them, my offering, my food for my offerings made by fire of a sweet savor to me, shall you observe to offer to me in their due seasons." End of quote. When they are to be offered?
In the due seasons.
In the due seasons. Good. When we look to the last part of this sentence, where we read, quote, "Shall you observe to offer to me in the due seasons?" In Hebrew, we read, "Tishmeru lekhakriv li be'meot." There we see the word shomer, which means careful guard. The word shomer in Tishmeru, the word shomer means a careful guard. The same word is found in regards observing the Shabbat, the weekly Shabbat. Careful guarding the weekly Shabbat. Then we see at the end of the word Moed, which is translated as often as appointed times, or here in this case, due season. Now, in summary, we can say that these offerings were to be shomer, carefully guarded, to serve them, these offerings, at the Moed, at the appointed times. Are you with me? Okay. Now, next pasuk in Bemidbar, Numbers 28, says, quote, "You shall say to them, this is the offering by fire which you shall offer to Yahweh. 2 male lambs, 1 year old, without defect, as a continual burnt offering every day." End of quote. So the question we may ask, when, at what time of the day shall these to be offered. The next pasuk says when. Look at this. Bamidbar 28:4 says, "You shall offer the one lamb in the morning, and the other lamb you shall offer at twilight." End of quote. First lamb, in Hebrew we say shaharit, morning. Second lamb at mincha, at twilight. That's why we have the nicknames for those prayers. We basically call the morning prayer shaharit, and the afternoon prayer mincha. Why? Because they are directly connected to the offering of two lambs, the morning lamb and the afternoon lamb. At each time of these sacrifices, people who were gathered in the Mishkan, which is tabernacle, or later in Beit HaMikdash, which is the temple, at that time these people were offering prayers. Don't think that the Kohanim, they just brought the lambs, they slaughter, they do the blood ceremony and this and that and it's over. No. At this time, those people who lived nearby, in Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, they would go to the temple. And this is the only time that they would go to the temple and pray at that time of night. I'll expound on this more next message. But this is just a good foundation so we can understand better the next message. Now, to this particular two lamb offerings, Adonai is adding more information. And I wonder how you're going to like that. And these are found in Shemot chapter 29:42. Shemot chapter 29:42, where he says, "It shall be a continual burnt offering throughout your generations at the door of the tent of meeting before Yahweh, where I will meet with you to speak this to you." End of quote. At this appointed time of sacrifices and the prayers, we see it is a very special time, spiritual aspect of it, extremely special. And it's to be observed when? Throughout the generations. Do you see that? It's to be observed throughout your generations, our generations. Further, in the next pasuk, Adonai repeats himself to make sure we would understand by saying, quote, "There I will meet with the children of Israel, and the place shall be sanctified by my glory." When? Then. When then? At the time of the offering of the lamb. Adonai says he'll come. And at that time, that place will be what? What does it say?
Sanctified.
Sanctify what? By his glory. What a time. What a special time. Would you like to be at that time, at that place? Would you want to experience that? Well, this is a good introduction to it, this message. In the Bible, we see that all of the holy people who were attaching themselves to these times of prayers, even if the temple was destroyed. For example, in Daniel chapter 6:16, we read the words of the king speaking to Daniel, who was continually praying at these appointed times of prayers. He would go and pray. We know the story of Daniel. We have seen movies about this, right? Do we? Now look at the description that the king is giving to Daniel. We read about this in Daniel chapter 6:16. Look at what the king says. The king commanded, and they brought Daniel and cast him into a den of lions. Now the king spoke and said to Daniel, your Elohim, whom you serve continually, he will deliver you. End of quote. Okay, so in what manner Daniel is serving to Elohim? It doesn't say. Continually, whom you serve continually. Now we have to remember, the temple is destroyed. Is it clear? And it's the Babylon. Time in the Babylon. The Daniel is in Babylon. There is no temple. There is no giving sacrifices offering at the temple. Yet Daniel is attached deeply to the appointed times of prayers, because he does continually come at the appointed time to pray. He served. He made the avodah, serve by praying. This practice of serving our Elohim continually is observed at this time of the Moed Tefillah, at this appointed times of prayer, in all of the circles of the Jewish people, even until today, those who are religious people. In all of these, we have to remember that the spontaneous prayer is always good and always welcomed by Adonai. Anytime you wish to pray, you may. And Adonai will always look at you to hear your prayer. But these set of prayers, these appointed times, have a special value in Adonai's sight, of which I will expound even more next Shabbat, Adonai willing.
Amen.
Sometimes, in some people's life, their spiritual experience, the knowledge that they collect over time overrule their responsibilities of prayer in their life. Sometimes we stuck so much information and knowledge, we search for the next message, and next teaching, the next book, but it seems that we don't move in all of this. We're just hunters for knowledge. But if the knowledge does not change us, what a benefit is from that knowledge? No, there are Hebrew scholars who has PhD Hebrew, but they're not immersing themselves in the path of the Torah or of Yeshua. The knowledge may give us some benefit. Other people, they're convinced about their faith, that they believe in Messiah Yeshua, and they think that that faith is plenty enough, and the spontaneous prayer is good enough, especially when you need to pray, when you're in trouble in your life. Prayer is a time of cleaving to our Father. This is the time when we can cleave. It is a special, intimate time in our relationship with our Father. We see this picture of the Jewish people throughout the media, that they are praying. Have you seen pictures like this or similar?
No.
This is a typical picture of a Jewish person praying at the appointed times of prayers. It's a special time for cleaving to our Father. It's a special time of building an intimate relationship with our Father. This word cleaving is also found in the relationship between Adam and Chava. Cleaving, being together, having intimate relationship where there is no room for anybody else. You and that person. But these are our daily appointed prayers with our Father, daily meetings. My question for you, can you afford to miss them? Can you? I know my wife, how she is disappointed and sad if I do not spend my appointed daily time with my wife, i.e., before she goes to work. She would want to have even 10 or 15 minutes to sit with me, just to chat together, give her a hug and talk about whatever things. And if it doesn't happen, how she's upset. I very seldom tell her how I am upset if I miss that time because of the circumstances in our home sometimes. These are very special times, right, Robertson? If I would miss my time with my wife, it seems like that day is not completed. Something is missing in that day. Something I have lost in that day, something special that belongs between me and my wife. I could sit with my daughter, my son, or with a neighbor or a brother or sister. That would be not the same. Something that belongs to my heart. Something that there's no room for anybody else. When it happens that I miss a Moed Tefillah, Shaharit or Mincha, because it does happen that I do miss, I feel the same way in my soul. The deepness in my soul. I feel like I have lost something that my soul is every day continually waiting to connect with. I miss to come to the set apart time when I miss Shaharit or Mincha. Let me rephrase this. When I miss my time with my father, the Shaharit or Mincha, it seems like I missed to come to a set apart time that is sanctified by His glory. Do you catch this phrase? A time that is sanctified by His glory. Now my children are always, wondering why I want to do these prayers. They don't get it yet. One day I pray that they will get it. And maybe you who watch this message may get it. One day you may try to do it. And then maybe the glory will be revealed to you, and then you will understand what it means to miss the time in the day, in your busy time as we are, to miss the set apart time by our Father. He had set apart this time, and He has sanctified this time by His glory. I could say only at the end, may Adonai continue to bless you, and Adonai willing, next week we'll expound more on it. Shabbat Shalom. Let us pray.